Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's Baptist Together webinar. We are for once not going to be talking about coronavirus, we hope, for the next sort of 3/4 of an hour or so, but we're going to be talking about gift aid. So I'm Richard Wilson. I'm the support services team leader at the Baptist Union of Great Britain, based out of our offices in Didcot, although today I am working from home from my home office. And I'm delighted to be joined by my finance manager, Ian Wakeham. Hi there, Ian.
Hiya.
So Ian's going to be leading today's webinar about gift aid and some of the practicalities of how to administer gift aid within a church environment. You will, if you're joining us on YouTube, if we're going to do Q&A via the YouTube chat function. So when you put a question onto YouTube, we can see that, and then we will do our best to answer your questions. Should be aware that if you post in YouTube, you do need to be logged into that, but if you post a comment in YouTube, obviously your comment is visible to everybody who is participating, and will be also saved for posterity if anybody comes back for a replay of this webinar. So this webinar is being recorded. If you want to watch it back later or want to share it with somebody else, then please do. It will be stored up on our Baptist Together YouTube channel for posterity. If you submit a comment and you want us to remove it, then please do drop us an email at supportservices@baptist.org.uk, and we will make arrangements for that comment to be removed if you subsequently decide you do not wish it to be there any longer. However, we would encourage you to make comments. Obviously, keep them polite and constructive, and we will do our best to engage with any questions that you post. So, without too much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ian and let Ian lead us through. Ian will speak probably for 25-30 minutes. We'll make sure there is time at the end. If there are any questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat. If they're particularly relevant to the slide we're on, we might stop and answer it there and then, but otherwise we might save them up for the end. So don't be too worried if we don't answer your question immediately. But anyway, that's where we are. Ian, here are the slides. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. So my name's Ian Wakeham. I'm the finance manager of Bugbee. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, Richard, but we will be still talking about COVID. We can't get rid of it completely, but it will be in relation, obviously, to gift aid itself. Gift aid and anything to do with HMRC often causes fear and trepidation in some people's minds of the big tax man wielding a big stick. There isn't anything to worry about with gift aid, providing you follow the rules and the requirements that are laid out by HMRC. So if you do have any questions, either, as Richard said, during this webinar or afterwards, you can always drop us a line. You've got there's a generic email address there if you want to try and contact me. So without further ado, let's crack on and let's have a look at what we're going to look at today. So gift aid and HMRC may sometimes feel like navigating through a maze. As I said in the opening, if you follow the procedures, it is possible to navigate your way through and to get through to the other side. So we're going to look at three areas today, primarily. What is gift aid? Is that coming up? There you are. We're going to be looking at the rules and eligibility. And we're also going to be, thirdly, looking at GADS, which is the top-up, basically, of gift aid itself. So those are the three areas that we're going to be focusing on primarily today in a little bit more detail. So the first question, what is gift aid? Well, purely simply, gift aid is a system of tax relief on donations to charities. We're all paying income tax or capital gains tax, which makes us eligible for gift aid. And the tax relief is the government's handout from the gift that we make to the designated charity. If the donor is a standard rate taxpayer, then they see no difference in their tax code or any tax that they pay. They don't get any relief, but it's a zero change. If donors are of a higher rate tax rate, then they will actually see a further benefit, because they will get tax relief on 40%, and the fraction of 20% tax comes to the designated charity. So if we've got the current rate of tax is 20% at the moment, and so the fraction of calculating the gift aid is 20 over 80. The 80 is derived from the 100% minus the 20, which is the tax. So if we look at a particular example, so if somebody donates us £100, the gift aid tax that the charity will be getting back will be £25. So that's 100, which is net of tax, times 20%, which is the tax rate, divided by 80. So that gives an equivalent rate of 25% on the gift. It's not 20% of the 100%, so you don't of the £100. That's not how you calculate it. You have to assume that the £100 is the net of tax, which is why charities can get a quarter back, even though the tax rate is a fifth. So we'll go on to the administration itself. The gift aid declaration form is available on our website. Apologies if it's not particularly clear, but these are available on our website, so you can actually have the documentation itself. But to give a broad outline, the things that we need is we have to have the gift aid declaration itself. Within that, we have to state how much the donor is going to be giving and to which charity it's going to. So that's important, because you can't just make a general statement saying, I'm going to give to charity. It's got to be a particular charity. Thirdly, hopefully it's coming through, there's got to be an indication as to whether the gift or the donation is a one-off gift, or whether it can be backdated to the last 4 years. Can we go on to the next slide, Richard? So it can be either backdated up to 4 years, so you can actually capture all of those, and it obviously is future, and that can be ruled out. So it can just be a one-off donation, or it can be backdated and for future. By default, the donor must be a UK taxpayer. So it cannot be an overseas person to be claiming gift aid, and the tax has got to be either income tax or capital gains tax. If the donor is not making sufficient tax payable to HMRC, then unfortunately HMRC will write to that donor saying, well, we've given this amount of money to the charity you've designated, you haven't paid enough tax, so can you give us some money back? So it is important that the donor is a taxpayer and that they are making sufficient contributions. Next is we've got to provide evidence of receipt of the donation. So we can't just take money and then use that money for some other purpose without it going through the books. We've got to have some sort of evidence, and the gift must be genuine, and we've got to be also very wary of the benefit rule, and we'll touch on that later in the presentation. And finally, no, there's two more. So we've got to provide the evidence for donation, and the donation has got to be to the charity. It can't be, we can't be asked to collect the money and then forward it on to a third organization. It's got to be for the charity themselves. So that's important to be aware. So you might very well take a donation with the express wish that it goes to the Home Mission Fund or BMS World Mission. That's a wish, that's not designated it. and then the charity, the church, can decide whether or not to use that in accordance with the wish, but it will be not bound by it. So it needs to be given to the charity and not with the condition. It can be a suggestion, but not with the condition of another organisation. So let's look at the evidence of declaration that's required. It needs to be written declaration or verbal, and it's got to be recorded. So you've got to be able to prove to HMRC that a gift aid declaration in some shape or form exists. So clearly that's most of the time it's written itself. You don't have to keep copies of the original gift aid forms. They can actually be emailed to the charity, to the church. And if you do actually receive a copy of the gift aid, again, you don't have to keep the original. They can be scanned and then stored in the computer systems, and then you can throw away the original. So you can actually receive it by email. You can also receive it, you can store it as a saved document in data. There needs to be gift aid envelopes or standing orders, which would actually help to show that the donation is actually happening. Within the gift aid, you've got to record any benefits that are given to the donor, and we'll touch on that in a few moments. How long do we need to keep the forms? Well, it should be 6 years plus the current year in the year at the time that the gift aid is operational. So if the gift aid is going forward, you keep the gift aid form itself. And once it ceases, you then keep it for 6 years, and then you can destroy it. But again, you've got the evidence itself to show to HMRC. And finally, the gift aids can be cancelled by the donor at any time. And that needs to be recorded on the gift aid as to when that evidence has been, when the cancellation has taken effect. And then, as I say, you've got to keep it for 6 years, but you need to keep that evidence of the cancellation, because obviously a donor may stop paying income tax and therefore can't claim anymore, and you can't make a donation anymore via gift aid, and therefore there will be a requirement for them to be cancelling the gift aid so that they don't get penalised themselves.
Yeah, so we just had a quick question come in just on the extension of that topic. So Hugh has asked, how long should gift aid declarations exist before they need to be renewed? So if you've had a long-standing gift aid declaration, does someone need to sign a new one at some point just to keep it current?
No, but I would recommend, particularly since some of the details might change, the donor might very well change address, in which case I think it's probably worthwhile getting a new declaration form signed with the new address, just to keep it up to date. And obviously if there's a change of name, so if a woman gets married and decides to change her name, or there's a name change for either gender by DPOL, then again, ideally, I would get a new form signed. So changing any of the details, I would get a new form signed. Otherwise, it's open until it's cancelled or the donor stops paying the charity. Yeah. I hope that answers the query.
Yeah, I think that in general, HMRC are very open to allow you to evidence the declaration in they're actually not too picky on this, is my experience, that they're actually trying to find ways to help you evidence. So they don't say it has to be under this age or any more complexities. So anyway, hope that answers your question, Hugh. Ian, back to you.
Okay, so how do we make claims from HMRC for the tax itself? This is for obviously the church itself. There are 3 main ways of claiming tax from HMRC. One is using an Excel spreadsheet of donations. The second is using an HMRC approved commercial software, and that can actually also be on the HMRC website itself. And the third way is manually using a form called CHR1, which you can obtain from HMRC. However, there are restrictions as to when you can use those particular ways. So the first one, using the spreadsheet, That is only applicable if you've got 1,000 or more donors. So for most churches, that will not be appropriate because obviously membership is much less than the donors, although clearly it doesn't have to be membership, but you wouldn't generally be claiming more than 1,000 people for gift aid. The second way, which is probably more suitable for churches, will be if you have got, you're claiming less than 1,000 donors. And the third way, if you are a much smaller charity and you've only got 90 donors or less, then you can actually use the manual paper form CHR1. So that's for donors under 90 entries. But clearly HMRC are trying to move away from paper forms, and they would rather use digital and software to be actually processing the claims, because it takes them obviously a lot more time to process the claims, and there will be a delay in getting the money. So ideally, go onto HMRC websites to claim, or any other approved commercial software from HMRC, and you can make your donations. Then there are a number of software companies who might do the accounts for you, and they have an add-on package attached to the software, which will actually do the claiming for you. So those are the three main areas. So moving on, what is a gift? It might seem rather strange to actually ask what that question is. A gift is a donation of money, but that money cannot be in the purchase of something like a raffle ticket. And nor can it be a donation of an item. So if somebody wants to donate a painting to the church with a value of, I don't know, £200, that can't be counted as being for gift aid, because it's got to actually be in money. It needs to be totally unrestricted or designated within the specific purposes of the charity's operation. Remember, I was saying that we can't claim or receive money with the specific purpose of passing it on to a third organization, but it can be designated internally if it's within the objects of the charity. So if the idea is to be providing support and help for overseas or mission, then clearly that's suitable as gift aid for the church. We've been talking about some of the benefits, and that's we're coming on to this one now, that there needs to be no significant benefits for the donor. Now, what does that mean itself? So if the donation is less than £100, then the maximum benefit that the donor can receive is 25% of the donation. So that's a percentage rate. If the donation from to the charity, to the church, is between £101 and £1,000, then the maximum benefit is limited to £25, is specific value. And if the donation is more than £1,000, then the benefits that the donor can receive is 5% of the donation up to a maximum of £2,500. Now, I'll pause there for a second for you to take those in, because we'll come on to these limits in a few moments on our next slide. So there can be a benefit. There can be a benefit that the donor receives, but it's got to be very marginal. It can't be significant. Other gifts and benefits. We've got loans. A donor may make an interest-free loan to a church. Particularly, we've had coronavirus over this last year and a half, and churches obviously have had their money drying up to a certain extent because they haven't had the donations coming in, they haven't had the rental income from property. And so church members may very well have made interest-free loans to the church just to help them out cash-wise. Now, there was a change in the law earlier this year in May, whereby the loan repayments can now be waived and counted towards gift aid. So that's a new thing that came in at the beginning of this year. So rather than repaying the loan, you have to go through and you can state that you want to waive the repayment, and that can then trigger a gift aid claim. And finally, the gift must be freely given. It can't be obviously done under of a demand. It needs to be given freely by the donor themselves. So we're looking at the significant benefit there, the 25% if it's under £100, £25 if it's up to £1,000, but more than 100, and 5% or 2,500 if it's above 1,000. So let's have a look at the relevant value test that I make reference to there. So here's an example. So on the 6th of May, the donor makes a payment of £30 and receives nil benefits. That's fine, great. Then the following month makes another donation of £10 and receives nothing. That's fine. On August, they make another donation of £25 and receive nothing in return. That's also perfectly fine. But on the 5th of February, if they then make a donation of £80 and the church thinks, well, you know, we want to honour this, we want to give a book back to the donor, and they buy a book, say, worth £30, that is now more than the 25%. So the first three you pass, the fourth one fails on the relevant value test because it's more than £25. Go on to the next ones. On the 11th of March, if the donor makes a significant donation of £9,600 and the church decide to honour that individual by providing a spa weekend costing somewhere in the region of about £450, does that come on? Is that relevant? Does it pass or does it fail? And then we can see that the relevant test, because it's less than 5%, that they actually do pass the relevant test, and aggregately the 30, the 10, the 25, the 80, and the 9,600 is all passing under the aggregate test. Now, if the following month there's a very large donation of £50,000 which is paid to the church, then obviously the value of the benefits, if they were received, of 2,500, it passes, but it then fails on the aggregate test because obviously the total benefits that were received are more than the amounts specified by HMRC. So that gives you a rough indication of the relevant value and the aggregate test. For most churches, this is not really relevant because obviously church members are giving freely on a Sunday morning or donations through standing orders, and they're not receiving any benefits at all. But you probably just need to be aware of this rule just to make sure you don't fall foul of it.
I guess where this becomes more relevant to churches is where talking about, say, a fundraising dinner or something like that,
Yes.
or where perhaps just to be wary of claiming gift aid if somebody buys something from the church. You would have, as a general rule, if a church sells something to somebody, that's a trade. That's not a gift. That's a trading item. So it's only if you can justify that they've made a substantial donation and only received something that wasn't worth anything near that value in return.
And say it's got to be freely given, so it can't be, well, I'll give you this if you give me this, because that's not being freely given. So it needs to be a donation. And yes, Richard is right. So if you decide you're going to hold a meal and the value of the meal comes to, I don't know, £5 for the benefits of the food itself, donations could be received. Again, it's not paying for tickets, it's a donation. It has to be freely given. Then you've got to be aware of the benefits are being received in relation to that donation.
Yeah, we've just had a question come through. It's related to something you said earlier, Ian. So Paul has asked, if money donated to the church for a third party, i.e. I think in this instance, a food bank, who claims the gift aid, the church or the food bank, or both? I think it very much depends on how that gift is given. It's
Yes, it would be.
so if the gift is specifically for the food bank, then it's for the food bank to claim the gift aid, even if the cash was given to the church to pass on. But if it's the food bank in receipt, if it's given and to say we would like it to go to the food bank, but in the end it's the church's choice, then the church can claim gift aid on that. But there's got to be a bit careful doing that too often. In general, it's better if a donation is for another charity, give it straight to the other charity. It makes life an awful lot simpler.
Yeah.
Was just one correction from earlier, in that the spreadsheet claim method is for up to 1,000 donors, not more than 1,000 donors. So we've had that corrected in the chat.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so press on.
Moving on then. So let's have a look at expenses, because obviously we're all working in the church, and we might get expenses, and we might decide that we want to basically gift the things that we're buying, whether it's for milk or teas and coffees or whatever, to the church. We could make the expense claim form, but we would have to physically receive the claim and then give back to the church. We can't then say, well, here's some expenses, can you please put it through as a gift, as my gift aid, and attach it to my record. The church would need to physically pay the money to the donor for the donor to then go give it back. And this is then back to this whole idea of being able to prove that the money is coming in to the church and not being offset. So expenses can be donated back, but they have to have that transaction of going both ways. We talked about the new regulations on loan repayments. So here are the rules which came into force on the 4th of May. So there must be a record of a formal waiver held by the charity. All of these can be obtained from the HMRC website forms. It needs to include details of what is being made, expressly clearly that the donor, that all legal rights to any future repayments are waived, and confirming that the amount that's being waived is to be treated as gift aid. Because obviously if you're waiving a repayment, it may be that the donor doesn't pay tax, so you wouldn't be able to claim the gift aid. So it needs to be stating that the donor wants it to be used for gift aid purposes. The form must clearly explain that the donor has a choice between obtaining a full refund or waiving the right to the refund. The donation will be considered to have been made at the date of the waiver. So it's not at the date that the loan is made, it's when the waiver is signed. And that's obviously important for the tax year in which you're claiming. And clearly all other gift aid rules need to be met. So that's something new which came in at the beginning of, or towards the beginning of this year. May the 4th it came through.
And often this would be relevant where, say, people have given interest-free loans to support a building project and then say, actually, you don't need to pay me back as much as I gave. Yeah. I think just to be clear, if somebody waives, let's say somebody's given 10,000 or made an interest-free loan of £10,000 to be paid by instalments of £1,000 a year, if they waive 1 year's repayment, then the 1 year is the gift aid. They don't need to necessarily waive all future repayments. They just need to waive any right to a repayment of that year's, any future repayment of that amount. So it's sort of like if somebody gives a loans 10,000, has two payments back of 1,000 each, and then in year 3 says, I don't need the year 3 payment, you can keep it, but says I could do with the year 4, 5, 6 up to 10 back, then you can claim the 1 year as the gift, and you then have to obviously pay the subsequent years unless they subsequently choose to waive those as well. But
yes, because obviously once the waiver's been given and the church has claimed the gift aid, the donor can't then turn around and say, well, actually I've changed my mind, can you give it back to me? Yeah. They have actually physically waived for that repayment.
But just to clarify, because I think the words on the slide could be could be misinterpreted. It doesn't mean that they have to give up all future donation, all future repayments. It's just all right to that repayment being claimed later. So just a deferral of repayment is not a gift aid gift. It's only if that repayment is completely waived. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so what can't claim as gift aid? If the gifts are made on behalf of other people. So it needs to be from the individual who's the taxpayer. You can't be receiving the gifts from a third party. Gifts have got to come with a condition. So you can't claim gift aid if it comes with a condition of repayment.
Because that's a loan.
Like a loan, yes. Unless, of course, you waive it at a later date. And gifts that come with a condition that the church buys particular goods or services for the donor, again, that you can't claim gift aid on that. It's self-explanatory, but it could be confusing for some of the people, some of the church members who might think that they're just helping the church out. So if there's a condition to buy something, then you can't use that as gift aid itself. Moving on to the third main area of today, we're going to be looking at the the gift aid small donations scheme, GADS as it's sometimes referred to. And this is the donation is a top up that the government make for spare cash, cash which is not necessarily identified as gift aid individually. And you can claim up to 10 times the amount of gift aid that you claim. So, for example, if to claim a top up of £100 of small donations, then the church only needs to receive £10 in that same year from a designated person. So whatever number of gift aid forms you have, you can claim GADS up to 10 times the amount that you receive. But there are restrictions and comments about that. But let's also look at in relation to COVID. The small donations, we said earlier that it has to be cash. Cash is defined as physical cash, and it can include contactless cards now. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the physical cash. It also is donations, and it's got to be £30 or less. If we're receiving a donation of £50, then you can't count that donation under GADS. The best thing would be getting a gift aid form signed by the donor itself. So there is that maximum limit of donation. Obviously, with COVID and people being away from church for long periods of time, particularly if you've been using an envelope scheme, historically, the idea was that you provide one envelope per donation. And obviously, we haven't been meeting for the last year and a half. So HMRC have relaxed the rules a little bit to allow multiple small donations in the one envelope. So this will actually help out for COVID. But any donation cannot be used towards any other gift aid claim. You can't claim the gift aid twice. And the GADS must be claimed within 2 years of the end of the tax year to which the claim relates, without a 2-year gap between claims. Next, the church must have claimed gift aid on its other donations in that same year. So to get the 10%, 10 times lift up, you've got to have made a gift aid claim. And the maximum you can claim under GADS is £2,000, so £8,000 worth of cash that is not specifically on a gift aid form. So this is the spare cash.
So just going back to that thing about the COVID sort of relaxation, Ian. So if you've got somebody in your congregation who's in the habit of giving an envelope with £20 in it every week, and they've been saving up those £20 at home, and they turn up with a year's worth of £20, which would be what, £1,000. So 52 £20 notes in an envelope, and it says it has to say on the outside, here is my 52 weekly £20, so that you can demonstrate to HMRC that it just so happens for convenience, because we weren't open, they couldn't they couldn't give us all they've aggregated them all up together. So there's some flexibility, but you do have to make sure it's properly documented.
Properly recorded, because obviously you've got that £30 limit. So if you've got somebody who goes on holiday for a fortnight and then comes back and then pays in 3 weeks worth of donations, that might very well be more than the £30. So technically, on the first line, you were not able to claim gift aid for that cash. But if you're actually saying, this is for multiple donations and it's amounting for a certain number of weeks, and that's the average comes down to less than £30, then you can claim that as GADs. But clearly the gift aid, if you're using an envelope scheme, they are probably already registered for gift aid in their own right rather than as cash itself. But
and obviously, if it comes into a collection tray where you can't possibly tell which notes came from which people, then as long as the notes aren't stapled or clipped together or whatever, then I think you've got a little bit of liberty to assume they were from different people. But if somebody hands you a wodge of £20 notes and they're clearly all from the same person, then you honestly can't claim your GADs on that, unfortunately. But,
no. So let's move on to the keeping of the records. It's always a good opportunity for two people to be checking the records itself, checking the cash and counting it and countersigning. That partly protects the people who are counting it for any suggestion that they have taken some cash for themselves, that if you've got this dual person counting and checking, that mistakes are not going to be made, and you've got a backup to say that this is the cash that's been received, all of the cash that's been received, and somebody's not just putting their hand in the till or the offertory plate, as the case may be. So how do you record? Well, you need to be recording how much cash was collected, the date in which the money was collected, to ensure that no individual is making a donation of more than £30. Oh,
sorry.
Unless, of course, it's you got some sort of note back of an envelope or some letter saying that it's a multiple donation. So that's good. That would be good housekeeping to show the records being collected, and so in case you have an HMRC check on your record keeping, this will actually go a long way to proving that the records you're keeping are correct itself. So on to our final but one penultimate slide. Let's have a quick recount of what we've looked at today. We've looked at specifically what is gift aid. We've looked around some of the rules and eligibility about it. And we've also looked at GADs. And as you can see from that little maze, yes, it might seem daunting, but there is a way through. There is a clear path to get through the maze and to be collecting this tax relief from HMRC. So the essence is keep gift aid simple and keep the records up to date, because that way you're not going to get confused and it's not going to be such an onerous task on you. There are a number of resources available for you. So you can go to the Bugby website, and specifically there's two leaflets you can seek out in the search bar. G01 for gift aid, claiming a top up, and there's G02, the new form of the gift aid. So we looked at the form right at the beginning as to what the requirements are. Well, there's your gift aid declaration. There is obviously the pages on HMRC, which you can get additional resources from them if you need anything further. But certainly from our websites, you've got those two resources itself. So I think that's what I want to share today. Are there any questions that people would like to raise following what we've been looking at?
So thanks, Jim.
If you haven't got any questions and something comes to mind at a later date, you can always drop us an email at a later date anyway.
Yep. No, we're always happy to help. So through the website, you can find our sort of contact forms and the like, or you can just email us at I think financeoffice@baptist.org.uk or supportservices@baptist.org.uk. It will get through to us, or you can just call the front desk 01235 517751, and we will. Sorry, I've just given you my number. You can call me directly if you want. 01235 517700 will get you to the front desk, and they'll be happy to direct your call accordingly. But no, thank you for that, Ian. Oh, we've just had a quick question that says, apologies, I missed the start. Is there a new form? So I think the recommended form of words did change, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. There's no obligation to update your forms, but you should be trying to use the latest wording for any new declaration. So please do go to leaflet GO2 and you will find the latest recommended form of words. But as we said earlier, that HMRC are not generally massively picky, in the sense that they're trying to be helpful, I think, is the general tone of how gift aid is operated. If you're claiming gift aid on things that are just not gift aidable or not covered by gift aid declarations, then that is not what you should be doing. But if you've done a reasonable job, they're not going to get picky over you've used the slightly older wording. It's more about good practice. One thing just to mention as a quick one, if you are converting to become a CIO, now technically your CIO is a new charity, and therefore technically you should ideally go and get new gift aid declarations. However, HMRC have said that as long as the charity is the same name and there's clearly a continuation, that they will be happy for you to continue using pre-existing gift aid declarations. But any new declaration should definitely make sure they reference the CIO charity registration number. But they will be accepting of older gift aid declarations for a good, essentially indefinitely, until it becomes. But we haven't seen any evidence of them causing trouble on that one. So,
Richard, do you want to highlight any other webinars that are coming up for the future?
Yep. So good prompt, Ian. Well, firstly, just to say, this webinar has been recorded, and in fact, if you missed the start, you can go back to the start right now just by using the play, pause, and sort of drag bar of to find the beginning again, and it will be here at this same address for the foreseeable future. You're very welcome to subscribe to our our Baptist Union channel. You should see the subscribe button on whatever device you are joining us with. So do click on that and you'll get all of the Baptist Union webinar content, which ranges across various areas. Our next support services webinar is in 2 weeks today, and we're going to be talking about the exciting topic of fraud and money laundering. Not the most delightful topic to talk about, but unfortunately we do know that our churches are targeted, if you'd like to learn more about how to protect yourself from fraud or money laundering, then please do come along and we'll talk about some good practice there. And that's being done in partnership with our solicitors, Anthony Collins, who have some particular expertise on that area. So please do put that in your diary. So in 2 weeks today, at 1 o'clock on the 1st of October. We are also planning a sort of refresher webinar on charitable incorporated organisations. That's due in November, so do watch out our support services emails for the exact arrangements for that webinar. But if you have other webinars or topics you would like to see us talk about, then please do drop us a line, get in touch. We'd be delighted to see what we can come up with, particularly if there are topic areas we have expertise on staff. But if there are topic areas where we don't, then we will see if we can find someone who can bring the expertise, because we are definitely here to try and make sure we help you. So Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for bringing us that informative and helpful webinar. And we will be delighted to hear from you if you have any specific questions via email or phone or whatever mechanism you get hold of us. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you and God bless, and have a good and blessed weekend.
Bye.